All right, so my presentation is on snow water equivalent and the relationship it has with Great Salt Lake levels. Um, and my name is Aaron Weaver. Let's go from there. Data sets were few and far between for snow water equivalent, and the ones that did have snow water equivalent, the resolutions were quite large. You can see 4 kilometers and 11 kilometers. So not great. I did find something from Modus that was 500 meters, but it only had snow coverage. I do show some images using that because it gives you a better idea of how much snow there actually is in certain years. Um, but it's not snow water equivalent, and I'll show you guys that when we get there. So part of the process, I looked in years 1983 to 2024, just to March of 2024. And those are the years that this covered. That was really nice. And if we go to the next slide, we can see the snow water equivalent each year. Here's 2023. We had quite a lot of snow last year, so that was really good for us. And you can see periodic wetter and drier years of snow water equivalent. I wish it showed in the early 1980s because we had lots of lots of snow in those years, but it didn't go that far back. And I'll show you a picture of the levels of the Great Salt Lake right after those years because that was when it was at its highest. So I brought it down to just back to 2006 because I found a graph of Great Salt Lake levels. I tried to find data on it so I could put it into Excel so I could compare it directly, but I couldn't find it. So I found a picture right here of the Great Salt Lake levels in those years here. Before you can see we were up towards healthy levels, the Great Salt Lake, and then it went up here in 2011 because of this snow year. And then we had a bunch of dry years. 2017 was a little above normal for snow water equivalent, and 2020 or 2019 was about average. And then we have this steep decline. And from those dry years before here, it dropped quite a bit. The red line here is the north arm of the Great Salt Lake, and the blue line is the south arm. Slightly different levels there. You can see the north arm dropped quite a bit from less snow here and water usage, but not for the southern arm. And then from our dry years previously, we dropped both quite very low and historic lows in 2022 because of these drier years. And so most of this water, the snow in the snow water equivalent comes as runoff. The levels of the Great Salt Lake aren't affected by precipitation very much, and so having snow is super important for the levels of the Great Salt Lake. Here, I did some time series of different years, but they didn't look very good because the resolution isn't very high. But here's comparing 2010 to 2023, and you can see how much more saturated we are with snow water equivalent in 2023. And there's that. And then I pulled this data from Modus. This is the snow coverage, and that's the difference. And you can see just how different it is. We have some noise from Great Salt Lake and Bear Lake, but if you ignore those, you can see just how much more snow we had from those two, from a dry year and a very wet year. And here's the picture of the Great Salt Lake. So in 1986, this was after we had multiple years of larger than normal snow water equivalent. And so the lake filled up quite a lot, and they actually had to release water, quite a bit of water, or else there would have been issues there. And here in 2021, it was lower, it was even lower just in 2022. You can see just how much area is being exposed. the water levels here, were around like 45 feet. And here we're getting to the lower 20s. And so quite a lot of water is lost. The average depth around this time was only 14 feet across the whole lake, so not a lot. And here we have the issue here is climate changes, increasing temperatures, and increasing temperatures has multiple effects. It leads to more evaporation. The lake is getting smaller, but more higher temperatures are causing more evaporation of the water from the lake. And since there's only those inputs from precipitation and water runoff, it can be lost very quickly in the warmer summers and years that we have dry winters. Another thing that the increased temperatures causes is we have less snow falling in the mountains, and more as precipitation. So we could be getting normal amounts of precipitation, but if it's falling as rain, it's not going to go into runoff and go into the lake where it needs to be. And then early snow melt, so we have less stored water later in the year, and that can also harm, I guess, not harm, cause the lake levels to decrease quite a bit. And a lot of this water from the mountains is getting diverted into reservoirs so that we can use it, especially for agriculture. So finding ways to, I guess, more efficiently use that water, so we're not wasting as much, so that more can be diverted to the lake. Because without the lake, a lot of bad things would happen. I'll go into the effects in just a little bit. But we see that the lake levels are very susceptible to changes in between dry and wet years. And so we have to take advantage of the wet years with that. Here in California, there was actually a lake that dried up, and quite a lot of problems came from it. Basically, the town nearby, people left because you just can't live with that dust and the impacts it brings to human health and the environment. Salt Lake is like that. It's has a bunch of minerals that are unhealthy for us to breathe in, and the more we expose the lake bed, the higher chance we have of that. Another thing that happens, I read in an article, that dust that's being exposed and blown up can get on the snow and decrease the albedo, making the snow melt quicker. That's also bad. The economic money that's brought in from the lake, 2.5 billion yearly, so that's quite a lot. Some of it's minerals that are mined. I just put that there. Decrease in wetlands. There's up to 10 million migratory birds that go through this area each year. And if they don't have that water, where do they go? And then we have less snowpack. One thing that the lake provides is lake effect snow. There's extra, the water gets evaporated and falls into the mountains, and then increased salinity as it evaporates more. One thing I would like to do more with this is see the effects of soil moisture in the fall, because we know that water goes into the ground after the snow melts, but we don't know quite how much. So having models that could see soil moisture better, as we did in our lab, it's not very effective in mountain areas, so we don't know quite as accurate. So I'd like to improve upon that. And here's my references, and thank you. Questions?